I would like to hear you use today are words such as fact family, factors, commutative property, array, multiples, and products. Now, we may not use sum and difference because we're going to be working on this today. My objective, we're going to use multiplication and division to problem solve in real life situations. So I may not use the word sum, because if I use the word sum, I'm what? Adding. And I may not use the word difference, because if I use the word difference, I'm subtracting. So, but I want us to be precise with our vocabulary. All right. Are you ready to begin?
Yes, sir.
Here comes your math task.
Welcome to Focus on Learning. This is Betty Wood, and I'm the Director for Teaching and Learning, grades 7 through 12, and I'm with
Autumn Turner. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for grades pre-K through 6.
Our focus on learning today is on Common Core and the new shifts that we've taken on as a school system. Just a few moments ago, you should have seen a video of Tammy Byers, one of our Common Core coaches, who led this video or this presentation, and she showed you a task. And at any moment in time, you might go in a classroom in Warren County and see our math teachers who are now working to provide these tasks for their students. And in doing that, they're approaching Common Core with a new way to teach and a new way to think. Our focus today is to kind of look at the shifts in math and in ELA, as well as the focus standards for math and the new kinds of ways in which we're teaching and learning in math, and then also to look at the ELA focuses. Ms. Turner has been given the distinction of working with our math group this year, and as we get new information regarding math and the shifts, the focuses, the State Department of Education mandates and the things that are occurring, she kind of shares those out with our math teachers and makes sure that our teachers are well informed. So if you kind of want to talk about maybe the math Common Core shifts.
Okay, sure.
And what that looks like.
Okay, well, we have 3 math Common Core shifts across the state, and it's kind of part of the implementation plan for moving from the old Tennessee state standards now to the national Common Core standards. The first Common Core shift is focus. And what that talks about is taking, you may have heard before that the old Tennessee standards were so extensive. We had maybe 113, I think is the example that's given in one grade level, 113 math standards that teachers were responsible for teaching and that students were required to master, really. And that's an awful lot for students to be expected to do and really have a very deep understanding of math concepts if you have to cover 113. So the shift is to focus strongly where the standards focus. And the standards, the difference with the standards for Common Core is that we narrow that focus. Students may have, instead of 113 across the grade level, they may only have 25 standards in Common Core. And that allows teachers and students to really take the content, the math content, and go much deeper into the math skills, as opposed to just kind of skimming the surface that we had to do in the past with all those many standards across a grade level. Focus strongly where the standards focus is also about getting that deep understanding while kids still have their procedural fluency that we have to have in math. It's kind of, you know, they have to have their multiplication facts memorized, and they have to be fluent with those to be able to really get deep down into some of the more extensive standards. So that's the first shift. The second shift is coherence. And what coherence talks about is making sure that everything is aligned from grade level to grade level. In the past, and with our old standards, we would hit standards at multiple times in multiple years. So if we were talking about fractions, fractions may have been covered, introduced maybe in 3rd or 4th grade, and continually covered through 5th grade, 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade. That's not the case with Common Core, and that kind of goes back into the focus that we are able to focus on certain math standards or concepts at one grade level, give the kids time to master that content, so we don't have to continually kind of beat a dead horse over and over, that we give the kids time to master that content so that they can move on and build on that. And that's the coherence across the grade level, that they are stair-stepping their math skills up as they move through the grade levels. So we're always building on students' abilities in math. And the last instructional shift for math, moving to Common Core, is that of rigor. And it's real easy to think of rigor as just making things harder, but it's more about pulling everything together so that it's reflective of the big picture in math. It's not just about more difficult tasks and students being able to approach and take on more difficult standards in math, but it's about building the deep level of conceptual understanding, along with what I was talking about a minute ago, that procedural skill, and kind of just building it all so that students can approach a very difficult problem and have the skills that they need to persevere and solve that very difficult problem. And you were talking about tasks a minute ago. I think that's common language that you and I know what it is. When we say task, we know what it is. But I just want to take a minute to explain that. A task is the extended problems that students are being faced with now. A task could take up to 2 days of a classroom for students to really work through, and it may only address maybe 3 questions that students are addressing within a math problem. But it moves away from maybe like what is 1/2 plus 3/4, and students pick A, B, C, or D. It moves to more making meaning from the math problem and something that they'll have to see in real life. So I wanted to kind of throw that out there. That's what a task is when we talk about tasks, because we talk about it a lot.
We do, and a very big piece of this whole pie is that task matters in everything in math and in ELA. And what we more see along the line is students being given a problem and then asked to use their understanding, their conceptual understanding of ELA,
Yes.
of complex tasks, of math, to resolve situations. Not all of them getting there in the same way. In fact, some students use different kinds of thinking to get them there, and then the teacher being able to assess that student and see where their learning is or what gaps exist, so that the teacher can create those bridges for those students.
Right.
So for math, the shifts are focus, coherence, and rigor. And then just speak to a minute or for a moment about the removed SPIs.
Okay.
And then the grade level focus standards in math.
Okay. As part of the transition plan, the state took the old Tennessee state standards. We're kind of working a hybrid right now. We have some focus standards from Common Core that teachers are addressing and teaching in their classroom, but we still have Tennessee state standard SPIs that we're also addressing in math classrooms from grades 3 to 8. So to kind of help that transition from the old Tennessee state standards to Common Core, the state went through and they analyzed all the SPIs, which are student performance indicators, those things that teachers teach to and kids are expected to know and be able to do. They removed certain SPIs that, one, were not aligned to Common Core, and 2, that that Tennessee as a state reflected that we had an okay level of mastery with. So it's kind of taking out what is no longer applicable or relevant when you're looking at it with a Common Core lens, and then we added in focus standards at each grade level that are aligned to Common Core. The focus standards were developed and chosen because those are the ones that help build the coherence across the grade levels, and those were the areas that, through analyzing our historical TCAP data in the state, that were emerged as weaknesses. So that's where the state said, kind of, we really need to focus here as we transition to Common Core. It's going to help us both identify and remediate our weaknesses across the state, and it's going to help these students to be able to transition from the old standards, the old expectations, to the new expectations in Common Core.
And with a backward design, thinking about what kids are going to need to be successful in college and careers, backing it into high school and looking at what are they going to need for Algebra 2 and Algebra 1, because those things still exist and those students have to take those end-of-course exams, and then really building towards students being able to do that in a couple of years when we take on the new Park assessment. So that's kind of the place where we are in math, and I have to really talk about what a great job our teachers have done in taking these on. And you saw just a moment in time where Tammy Byers, one of our coaches, was really working with students on the task, because we really do present them with a high-level problem and then ask them to use their skills to be able to tackle that and to demonstrate their math understanding. So that kind of talks a little bit about math. At the same time, Warren County decided to become part of the ELA pilot with the state, which means we really didn't drop any SPIs. We really didn't change the TCAP test for our English language arts program. We're still teaching to that same kind of standards, but what we're trying to do is get our teachers to take on a different style in their classroom. The 3 shifts for our ELA this year, and there are 6, but this year Tennessee has chosen to take on 3, is first to use nonfiction, which isn't something we're used to doing, to build background knowledge for our students. And what we've realized, I guess, in taking on Common Core is that sometimes we've translated for students, or we've protected them from the curriculum because we felt like they didn't or couldn't take on that rich content. But with some new strategies by our teachers, using text-dependent questions and reading and rereading and tackling small pieces of information that are nonfiction, I think our students and teachers are doing a great job in their classroom of taking on that shift. And we see it when we go into the classrooms and observe teachers, and we hear teachers talking about beginning to develop libraries and articles and things that they use in their classroom that are nonfiction. So that's the first shift, is to have content-rich, nonfiction, text-based teaching going on in our classrooms. The second is to get our students to read and write and to reflect on the evidence within the piece. In the old days, we used to ask them how they felt about it.
Right.
Now we aren't asking them that question. We're asking them to provide us with a summary of what they read, maybe 4 or 5 paragraphs, and then to use evidence to back up what they're working with. So the first content, or the first shift, is nonfiction and using that in the classroom, and the second is to read and write. I think I heard somebody talk about our kids are going to have to learn to read like a detective and to write like a reporter.
Yes.
And so that's kind of a new thing for our students to take on and our teachers. The third shift is to just have regular practice with that complex text, and to take science and social studies and to build it into our classrooms, in our English classrooms, and our reading classrooms. And so we've seen our teachers doing that, and probably I'm really convinced that our ELA teachers are working real hard to walk across the hallway and talk to their science teachers, to walk across the hallway and work with their social studies teachers, where they're bringing in the Gettysburg Address or the Bill of Rights or those kinds of documents, and our students are really working through those documents to understand not only the historical perspective but also the language of that time. And we're working to build academic vocabulary with those students, so that that vocabulary transcends that one classroom. Maybe a word like delineate is something they're going to see throughout their life. And so they're going to have to be exposed to that word early on, as it might appear in an English classroom or a reading classroom or a science classroom or a social studies. That one word transcends or works within all of those disciplines. So we're really seeing our students take on that. In the future, what will happen in Tennessee next year is we'll really take on Common Core. We'll add some shifts. The state has told us that in all likelihood they'll remove some English language arts SPIs. We'll still test with TCAP, but we're working through that process and building towards PARC by also taking on some constructive response assessments. And again, I have to compliment our teachers, because while they've taken on the shifts, they've pulled the standards in. They've embraced all of that, and they're doing that to the best of their ability. They also now have one other thing that they're doing in the classroom. I think we only have a minute to talk about this, but in math, our students are going to be taking a constructive response assessment, and they'll take 3 this year. And one will be in October, just after fall break.
It is, yeah.
And just talk for a second or two about the process for that.
Okay, sure. The constructive response assessments are kind of the open-ended tasks that students will have to respond to. They are state tests, but right now they're kind of just for practice for the kids, so that in 2 years they will be ready for the expectation that will be on the test that they'll have then. Like you mentioned, we're moving away from TCAP. We'll still have TCAP next year, but in 2 years we'll be moving to the PARC assessment. And these are the type of items that they'll be seeing on the constructed response assessment here in October, and then 2 more times throughout this school year. what they'll be doing here will be the same type of thing that they'll be doing in 2 years for the PARC assessment. And the items that they'll be responding to on the constructed response tests or assessments are aligned to those focus standards that we were talking about before at each grade level. There are 2 focus standards at each grade level for grades 3 through 8. So it just helps those kids be able to approach a problem solve, you know, all the things that they need to be doing to be able to approach a problem with perseverance and solve that problem. And it's very similar to the expectations that will be on them when they get out of school. You know, we don't go to work and get to work through our days with choosing A, B, C, or D.
Correct.
We have to take everything as it hits us and get it done, get it taken care of. And that's the kind of same type of ideas that these students will be facing with the CRA assessments. And it's going to be difficult.
It will be difficult. And the second difficulty in that is, and we're just tackling some professional development that's coming up October 22nd, is our teachers are going to learn to use rubrics to grade out all of
Yes.
those constructive response tests for math. And the same thing's happening with the ELA pilot. In November, we'll take our first test, and when we do, our students will respond to a text-based document, and they'll provide evidence, and then our teachers will learn how to score that out using a rubric. So it's very intense for students, but it's very intense for our teachers too, and
Right.
the learning curve in Warren County is just like this. And I applaud the teachers and the students who are taking this on. It's going to be very intensive for all of us, and I have to again applaud our director and our Board of Education for giving us multiple opportunities to meet together as professional learning communities to tackle these things, because if I could say one great thing about our community of educators, together, you know, we can solve the problems that exist in Warren County. And so when we're given that opportunity to meet together, our teachers do a great job of just working together to resolve those problems. There are some great resources that are out there for parents if they're looking to understand Common Core to a greater degree. One of the things you're going to see now is a video that comes from the state of Tennessee, where you'll hear some of our directors or commissioner and assistant commissioner talk about an overview of Common Core for parents. And we would ask that you watch this video now, and then we'll come back to you in just a moment with some resources for you.
Welcome to the 2012-2013 school year. My name is Emily Barton. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for Curriculum and Instruction for the Tennessee Department of Education, and we are very pleased to be presenting this video for parents. This year, across Tennessee, we will begin implementing Common Core state standards, and we've invited a number of educators who are advising us on this transition to share some thoughts with parents about what this transition will mean and what you can expect to see across this coming school year. The PowerPoint we share here and this video will be available on our website at www.tencore.org.
Hello, my name is Shara Hess, and I'm the Assistant Principal at Isaac Wooden Middle School for the Metropolitan Nashville Public School District.
My name is Jared Myerkel. I'm the Supervisor of Instruction for grades 9 through 12 in the Gibson County Special School District.
I'm Tammy Shelton. I'm the Supervisor of Instruction for pre-K through 12th grade in the Lincoln County School System.
As a part of the transition to Common Core, the Tennessee Department of Education has sought input from educators across the state in order to plan ways that can make this transition the most successful it can be. Since January, Tammy and I have served on the Common Core Leadership Council and have planned alongside members of the Department of Education ways that we could best train our teachers and facilitate this transition to the new standards.
And I have served as a Principal Core Coach, training principals across the state on implementing Common Core.
We are very excited today to talk with parents and community members about Common Core state standards.
This year, Tennessee joins 45 other states in the implementation of the Common Core state standards. This is an exciting time in Tennessee because the Common Core standards incorporate college and career readiness skills that students will need in order to be successful as they move on through college or into the career of their choice. Along with this transition comes the opportunity for educators in Tennessee to collaborate across state lines to ensure that the education received by a child in Tennessee is just as rigorous as an education that would be received anywhere else. As a part of this transition, the state is modifying 2 tests that are currently being used in order to familiarize students with the new format of the assessment and to give feedback on their readiness for the PARCC assessment and our progress around the instruction for the Common Core state standards.
On the PARCC assessment, students will be required to write essays and explain their thinking. These are skills that we know students will need to be college and career ready. This year, students in 3rd through 8th grade will take a new version of the constructed response assessment. This assessment will be in math only. The administration of the constructive response assessment will be in October, February, and officially in May. This exam will focus specifically in 3rd grade on multiplication and division. 4th and 5th grade will focus on fractions. 6th and 7th grade will focus on ratios and proportions, and 8th grade will focus on functions and linear equations. It will focus on these skills because these are the areas that students struggle with most, and also these are areas that students need for later success in mathematics. The constructive response assessment will have 4 problems, and students will be required to write out their explanations of their answers. Parents will receive the student responses of the exam and also the students' final scores.
To prepare teachers and students for the next generation PARCC assessments, 3 days of training were held in which 13,000 teachers engaged in content. In order to prepare the students for these next generation assessments, you will see 3 key shifts in instruction in mathematics this year. You will see fewer, more challenging problems in which students will be required to go deeper into thought. Students will be expected to solve problems in multiple ways, making sure that it's not just one clear way to answer a question. Just answering a question alone is not enough. Students should be able to critically think about the content. Students will be required to explain their answers by using pictures, diagrams, and sentences. Students will be expected to master math facts and what is called fluency standards. The chart is also available on our website. The chart summarizes the basic skills students need to know by memory at each grade.
In order to build in time for this deeper instruction, the TCAP assessment this year will be narrowed. Several topics will be dropped in mathematics. You can find a list of these dropped topics at the 10 Core website. Although several districts are piloting English Language Arts Common Core State Standards, there will be no change to the English Language Arts portion of the TCAP assessment this year. However, there will be changes to the writing assessment.
The writing assessment administered in the 5th, 8th, and 11th grades will undergo significant changes this year. In the past, students wrote to prompts such as describing an experience on a magic carpet ride or describing what it would be like to live under the sea. Quite frankly, these prompts did not require students to think critically and to read text analytically. The Common Core State Standards require both of these things, and as such, this year students will have to write with evidence based from text and to read those texts in much more analytic fashions than they did in years past. Sample prompts for the new writing assessment will be available on the 10 Core website in late September.
Parents play a vital role in their child's education. Ensuring that all Tennessee students are successful is a shared responsibility between teachers, administrators, parents, and the community. There are several things that parents can do to assist us in this transition. When your child is at home, engage with them in content. If you need to get out things in the kitchen or other manipulatives to help them visualize the problem, that would help a lot.
I know with my own kids at home, I plan on doing just that, pulling out manipulatives from the house to help explain their homework that they're working on. Another thing that I plan to do with my own kids at home is to ask them to explain to me how they actually got that answer on the math problem. Another thing with my own kids at home is I would like for them to be able to talk to me out loud about what they're thinking. So if my kids can just say, yeah, Mom, I was thinking about this, 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 and this as I got that answer. So definitely, those seem like great ideas, and definitely want my own kids at home to be able to explain to me the thought process that they are going through as they get their answers on their math problems.
In order for the transition to the standards to be as effective as it can be, it's imperative that parents understand what is happening on the assessment, what is happening with regards to changes in classroom instruction, and what they should expect with regards to the homework that comes home. And in order to familiarize the parents in Gibson County with that process, one resource we've directed them towards is the grade level guides developed by the National Parent-Teacher Association that really breaks down the skills that are addressed on each grade level, and also guides for conversations that you can have with your child and with your child's teacher about the content that is being covered in their classroom.
Earning a living wage has never required more skill, and we want to make sure that every child is equipped with the knowledge and skill to be able to compete and to be successful in college and career. We know that is every parent's wish for their children, and that is the aspiration of our work at the department. Throughout the coming years, as we prepare for the full implementation of Common Core and the PARCC exam, we are committed to quality and consistent communication. And the website, tencore.org, will be the primary vehicle for sharing changes to assessment and for sharing resources that can support student success. Together, we know we can see the day when every child in Tennessee is able to meet the expectation of these standards, and we look forward to working together for that day. Thank you very much.
The video that you just have seen comes from the tencore.org website, and it's called Common Core Overview for Parents. I think earlier we've sort of talked about the intensity with which teachers are tackling the classroom. Teachers are doing a super job, students are doing a super job, but I think we've kind of missed the boat sometimes in that we haven't always contacted parents or told parents that we're making these strides, and they're huge strides, into a different way to teach and learn for students. And I think Ms. Turner has some resources that she'd like to share with the public, and she'll also tell you where you can find these resources.
Okay. Well, and you know, I just want to bounce off what you said and say our teachers and students have been working really hard, but we are missing a part there that we need to do a better job about pushing this information out to parents, because without parents, you know, we're not going to be able to meet the needs of our students as much as we could if we're all working together. So I'd just like to take a moment and tell parents about a few resources that they may be able to find, and these will all be posted on the school system website. But there is a website that's called expectmoretn.org, and there's a lot of Common Core information there. The website you mentioned is a state website. This is more of a national website, so there's lots of great resources there. And then you could tag on to the end of that /parents, and it will take you directly to a page where parents can access parent roadmaps is what they're called, and it really just gives lots and lots of great information about Common Core, and I think specifically what they have there is in math right now. So that's one site, expectmoretn.org/parents. Another great resource can be found on the National PTA site. I believe that is www.pta.org. And there's a little search engine you could find, just search Common Core. There's Parents Guide to Student Success for Common Core documents found there. And then once again, we'll be posting those on our system website. That's www.warrenschools.org, I believe.
I think so.
.com. We'll get that posted. And anything else that we find, we'll also be posting there for parent information as well.
So, very challenging time for all of us in Tennessee and nationwide. And again, our focus here is to work with parents today so they can understand Common Core. In the very near future, we'll be having a parent-teacher conference at your schools. I hope you'll attend that. And when you go there, ask your teachers specifically about Common Core and what does that look like in terms of classrooms and in terms of student work. Because I think what you're going to see in the next few days and months, and particularly next year, is Warren County Schools kind of transforming to take on Common Core. Thank you for joining us for Focus on Learning.